Watch practice.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
You play to win the game.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Job's not finished. Job finished? I don't think so.
That's a joke. That's an absolute joke, is what it is.
You can't get a draw? A tie? Against Trinidad? Matt, you don't deserve to go to the World Cup.
Dumbest team in America.
You cannot be serious!
Get some facts and come back and see me. I got my extra bands on.
You want to talk about an epic day in sports, folks, between NBA free agency starting, college sports news, you name it, folks. The Sports Zone has you covered. Welcome in, folks, to another episode of the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network's signature sports talk show on this Thursday evening, June the 30th, the final day for June here in 2022, alongside our trusty co-founder of Ison Programming, our good man, John Alcorn. From deep in the heart of Houston, Texas, yours truly, Kyle McClure, from the home studios here in San Diego, California. J.A., as always, man, a pleasure to be on board here on Ison. Good to see you, my man. How are we doing tonight, as always?
Nervous because I don't know how to react. I've been checking social media like crazy on my breaks at work. Colin Sexton. But after the realization of today, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I'm going to be like that Bill Nye Science Experiment when you touch that little spheric ball and your hair goes swoosh, make me go crazy. But happy to be on. And if we don't get this Sexton deal done, I will personally fly there down myself. I will buy everybody some food. The GM, Colin Sexton, the head coach, and myself, we're going to get this freaking deal done.
And as always, folks, we invite your input here on our program. Again, if you're joining us via Facebook or on YouTube or via Twitch, again, as always, write in those questions, comments, or concerns. We'll do our absolute best to read your commentary as our program does progress here on this Thursday evening. With that, though, John, we'll kick off tonight in Fuego with tonight's hottest story of the day. And it's a bombshell hot story, folks, to kick off this edition of Sports Zone. This news breaking earlier on Thursday. And again, John, we've been talking somewhat about this pre-show earlier in the day. But of course, folks, that major news today, the USC Trojans and the UCLA Bruins, two flagship members of the Pac-12 Conference, have announced their intentions and plans and have been confirmed and have been accepted to join the Big Ten Conference come 2024, setting off another round of the conference realignment, college sports realignment carousel again on this Thursday. Again, this news broke way earlier in the day, rumblings of this becoming a thing, and then obviously as well later in the day today that the news became official about the Trojans and Bruins moving on to the Big Ten effectively for the 2024 college sports season. And John, I more so wanted to read this quote here from USC Athletic Director Mike Bohn, shared earlier in the evening, or earlier today, I should say, because now if you folks happen to visit the USC or UCLA websites, there is now landing pages, in fact, basically confirming and saying that now SC is now part of the Big Ten and vice versa. However, though, John, this quote, though, in Mike Bohn's press conference, or press release, I should say, on the USC Athletics website, is a very, I think, telltale sign of where college athletics is now going, whether people like me like it or not, because I've been kind of the guy barking at the clouds or yelling at the clouds, basically, is like that old man on my lawn, though, about, I don't think this is going to work. I still don't think it's going to work, though. But anyway, Mike Bohn's quote, though, John, and viewers out there, Mike Bohn said this today. And I quote from his statement made today on USCTrojans.com. This is the most volatile and uncertain era in the history of American collegiate athletics. USC must ensure it is best positioned and prepared for whatever happens next, and it's our responsibility to always evaluate potential opportunities and being willing to make changes when needed. But John, I'm more not perplexed, but more taken aback a bit, though, by that first part of that statement from the AD, Mike Bohn. The most volatile and uncertain era in the history of American collegiate athletics, where again, John, we are heading, I think, my man, to mega conferences, mainly for college football. I don't see this becoming a thing, though, for basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball, other sports like that. But at least, though, with football running the roost, where a lot of the money comes in for a lot of these programs. But I think, though, John, people like myself who've been skeptical, and even seeing Oklahoma and your beloved Longhorns defecting to the SEC next season, BYU leaving the West Coast Conference to go to the Big 12. Now, though, John, we have this. We literally now have two Western-based programs joining a Midwest and East Coast-based conference where, some people have already been trolling USC and UCLA. How are they going to fare playing football games in Lansing or in Ann Arbor in December when there's snow falling? How are these, warm weather schools going to be able to compete in the Big Ten? Now, yes, Oregon State, Washington State, the Pac Northwest has some weather usually in the course of the winter. But I don't think, though, John, it's not on the level of Lansing, Madison, Columbus, Ann Arbor, Rutgers even, that, Pac-12 weather is here, Big 12 weather is here. So I just don't know. And again, I hate to be the guy here, John, 7 minutes into this program, I still just don't think, I want someone out there to change my mind that all this realignment is going to work. I know about the money. I know about the revenue. I know about, that these moves make sense, though. But to me, these make no sense. And John, I think, share a Twitter thread just before we came on the air while I was watching you rage quit Madden tonight, or maybe you had won, I forget, though. But there was a Twitter thread I had seen, though, before I hand things over to you here, that I shared on Twitter on both the Ison account and on my announcing account. And this came from Porter Larson, who works for ESPN. Porter tweeted out at 4:45 local time this afternoon, USC and UCLA combined exactly for one Pac-12 12-team era championship. Just further shows what college football at large is all about. Follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. It ain't about football. A realization that sucks for a guy like myself. Second part of his thread. At least the young men driving the revenue will get a cut now if we're looking for silver linings. Third and final part of his thread, which I totally agree with. I get it. This is just a reflection of our society in general, but I'm still allowed to hate it. So, John, you've heard a lot from my side of the story here. Your overall thoughts, J.A., on this major shift now again in college athletics with now the aforementioned Trojans and the Bruins, USC and UCLA, longtime Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 flagship partners, John, leaving ship for the Big Ten come 2024.
I just think this is a disaster. And it's not just because I hate USC and I hate it with a pure passion. And James, thank you for that championship in 2006. I just think for college football, and I said 15 years from now, I really hope. I understand it's about money. Just like I said, this goes back to the early 2000s of the college football games and not being able to get their money, and then how that affects recruiting for certain schools. And now other certain schools can have better recruiting because you can pay your players, and hey, you can get this deal with Shake Shack or the Best Buy or these random sponsors. And so I think now I really hope it doesn't turn into a junk food of college football or the gluttony of college football where, just like the DJ Khaled said, I don't listen to his music, but another one. And at some point, it really gets exhausting and it's so annoying because you said divide one championship. If it's not going to magically change, then why go to a different conference? and I said this before, we said this before the show, and I think some people could agree on this, is that at some point, it's not like every single college football team out there, whether they stay in their division or go into another conference, not every single team is going to get all 5-star recruits. If you have D1, D2, D3, all those, they're not going to get all 5-star recruits. Alabama gets all 5-star recruits. Texas gets all 5-star recruits. Georgia gets all 5-star recruits. It's unrealistic. We're going to run out of players. So I think you kind of have this losing battle here where it's like a win-lose thing to the point where you have teams like Texas and others who are getting better at recruiting, yes, because they have the right team and the right players. But what happens to other organizations like Hawaii or New Mexico? I'm just saying like random things that honestly not a lot of people care about, but they don't have the resources to do that. To the point where you're going to have, I think there was an issue at the college football program years ago where they had to shut down their program because it wasn't generating anything. And I think you're going to have this type of issue where these teams are going to struggle. The recruiting, it's going to affect recruiting in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I think USC, UCLA, I mean, Chip Kelly, just pack your bags. You're screwed. If you couldn't win it all with Marcus Mariota, how are you going to win it at UCLA, join the Big 12? When I think of USC, again, James, thank you for that championship, I don't think of Big 10. It just doesn't sound right. It sounds off. UCLA joining the Big 12, it just doesn't make – it's so gross. Texas was a part of the Big 12 when we beat USC in 2006, arguably, in maybe some people's opinion, maybe right or wrong, one of the greatest college football games of all time in the playoffs, or the national championship. That's the Big 12. That's the Big 12. And then now you're going to have, USC in the Big 12. It sounds like a complete football violation here, and I just don't understand. It's a Big 10 or Big 12, I think.
Big 10.
Big 10. And it just sounds gross. Like, to the point where it's going to ruin college football. 15, 20 years from now, are we going to have the rule like a calendar? I think you said before the show where, hey, you join your new conference, it doesn't work out, sorry, you can't go back. And then 15, 20 years from now, are we going to see it to where it's like the college football apocalypse in the next 20, 30 years? Or is it going to be, hey, it didn't work out, you can go back to your conference? Because even if you go to a new conference and you couldn't win in your old one, it's not going to change anything. There's only so much money you can throw at recruits. If they're just not interested in your school, who cares? I don't think it's good look for college. Temporarily, yeah, we're great. But long-term, I just don't see how this can be beneficial for college football out there.
We, folks, welcome in our good man, Big B, Brandon Herrera, joining us from the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network on this Thursday evening, now Friday morning in the up there in Minneapolis. But, of course, Big B, you're a Big Ten guy, though, as a Gophers fan, and I'm sure that you are probably stunned like all of us were out here, either in Southern California or in the heart of Texas, though, seeing, two flagship members of the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 announcing plans and then being accepted into the Big Ten Conference earlier on Thursday afternoon. And certainly, Brandon, this mainly, though, my man, is about this conference realignment carousel in regards to how we have seen, OU in Texas, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida moving to the Big 12 after this school year. Then now USC and UCLA, who I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams ever leaving the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12. But, of course, it happens today on June 30th with them announcing their plans and being accepted later in the day into the Big Ten, where, again, Marcus Greaves, who works here at our local CBS station in San Diego, said it right, though. Their closest opponents now, other than themselves, are going to be Omaha, Nebraska, being the closest one in with the Huskers being about 1,500 miles away from Los Angeles. But certainly, Brandon, this is interesting. This is, I think, just the beginning of the inevitable that I've been trying to block out. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. And I still don't think it's going to work, though, regardless of where things stand. But, Brandon, your overall thoughts when you see the Big Ten poaching two Pac-12 members away from their current conference by 2024 in both the Trojans and the Bruins?
First,
I mean, location-wise, it doesn't make sense. I'm guessing you guys talked about the travel. That does not make sense at all. The money, the TV rights, that could probably be a big factor. Most likely is, but yeah, I was stunned. I mean, you taking two teams out that way, bring them to the Midwest. I mean, yeah, to me, location doesn't matter. I believe, I caught a little bit of John's rant at the end of it. I think 10, 15, 20 years, we're just going to have 4 big divisions. It's going to be the North, South, East, and West, and then within that, you're going to probably see minor divisions break down. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of stunned. I don't think it's going to work out just because traveling, I think, is just going to be the big factor. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. It hurts the Gophers a little bit because they were, trying to get better. And now they got to deal with not only Ohio State in recruiting, Michigan. Now you got USC, UCLA in recruiting. I mean, it just makes it tough for these smaller schools to become bigger schools. So we'll see what happens, but it's a stunner.
Like I was saying, Brandon, I think like this creates this fast food or this gluttony of college football, like you said, to where it's these 4 conferences and the rest is just these minuscule bags of air, like these crumbs at the bottom of the chip bag, to where it's like it doesn't. And it's not to say, because I missed the early good days of college football because it was better. But I think, well, at least in my opinion, but now where we're seeing it go, do we really want that? Like 4 conferences, 4 big ones, like the East, South, West, North, and all, whatever you want to call it. And then these 4 mini teams aren't going to do anything. It's just like a complete waste of time. Like, what is the point? Like, we know college football is about money. I'm not shocked. That's why the NCAA games are all that stuff. But I just think 15, 20 years, if that happens, it's going to be really ugly because then now you have the whole issues with some people not liking the placement of the college football playoffs. Well, that's going to completely change in 10 to 15 years. Hopefully, maybe if the bias of the college football playoff committee is not so far up their own butt that they can actually pick their own teams. But like I said, with those 4 conferences, I think it definitely makes it a lot harder. Like I said, the closest team that's traveling very far, competition's a lot different, and I think it's really going to hurt the college football playoffs. It's going to hurt, I think, a lot of things. And I could see it going that route. I just think that it could be really painful for the NCAA.
And that's more of my point of emphasis as someone who doesn't work in college football, nor watches it or really cares for the sport, is you think of a conference like the West Coast Conference, a Division I, like minor conference, but it's more of a conference driven by men's basketball. USD has a football program, guys, but they're in the FCS, though. They don't play FBS level football games. They're playing, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and North Dakota State and UC Davis and Stenson and Davidson and all these other, programs. And they're one of the longer traveled programs other than Hawaii based on distance because their closest opponent is in Des Moines, Iowa, playing the Drake Bulldogs. So again, until I see something affecting a conference like the WCC, the Big West Conference, or the Big Sky, I'm not going to totally lose all my marbles because there's programs who don't really rely on football for their revenue. Yeah, I think USD would probably, but I think more of men's basketball. I think more of baseball. I think more of sports like that, or what they would call the non-revenue generating sports, though, as what propels and drives those, drives those programs to where they're at, though. But, John, I want to go back to this quote, though, that I read, though, earlier in the show about this was from USC Athletic Director Mike Bohn, who put in his statement earlier on, this is the most volatile and uncertain era in the history of American collegiate athletics. And I think, John, that is something that, and we actually, folks, lost John and Brandon here. But I do believe, though, that I think that Mike is onto a very great point, though, that I wouldn't really say it's an uncertain era, but I think it is, though, for people like myself, who I said, though, or who have said, though, I should say, it's kind of uncertain because of kind of like where things stand right now. We've seen so many, teams moving, conferences, but also I think just mainly it's driven by the NILs right now. NILs are a big thing right now, as we know. I think Paige Buckers of UConn has a new deal in place with Gatorade, I want to say, and she's a part of like their marketing brand now, where they are selling products with her name and image and likeness on it. Now we've seen more and more guys getting commercials or getting revenue from stuff like that. But I do believe that Mike is onto a great point, though. But this begins an uncertain time, though, because we just don't know what conferences will look like in retrospect. But more so, Brandon, I want to go to you again. This statement. Part of his quote I want to read was from USC athletic director Mike Bohn earlier on Thursday. Mike says that, quote, "This is the most volatile and uncertain era in the history of American collegiate athletics." And I think, Brandon, it's more along the lines, as I just said here, NILs are a thing. Conference TV rights are going through the roof now. I think Arash Markazi of 1090 here in San Francisco put up that the Big Ten could have $1 billion television deal in 2 years. So, Brandon, do you agree with Mike Bohn's sentiments that this is both a volatile but also a uncertain era right now that we are entering in American collegiate athletics in your mind?
I think we definitely are getting into uncharted territory, as I would put it. I mean, you pretty much have free agency after every offseason now. I mean, the college portal transfer or whatever. So, I mean, one superstar is going to be on one team and then not like that team, and he's going to be able to transfer and stuff like that. So they're opening up a lot of worms with everything they're trying to do to, get the players happy and money and, moving, schools into different conferences because their TV deal's better. And so, yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a big change, good or bad. I think, it's just going to be weird seeing, when you're looking at the standings, seeing these teams come to the Big Ten or any team go to a different conference and stuff. So see what happens.
John, I do believe that Mike Bohn is onto a very great tangent that all of us as college announcers, college sports fans, whether it's football, volleyball, basketball, pick your poison here, that we are in fact entering both a volatile and a uncertain era right now in the history of American collegiate athletics because, John, for so long, it was, hey, don't bet on it, or you can't take endorsement deals, you can't do this, you can't do that. Now, all of a sudden, John, it's a whole new playing field because now we're talking about NIL deals in place. Like I said, Paige Buckers of UConn having her deal with Gatorade, and, some other players have deals with like shoe companies or car dealerships, or, just kind of spitballing, like a candy company or a soda company or a drink company. So, John, along with NILs and even with college sports television revenue, John, do you agree with Mr. Bohn's sentiments that we are entering a volatile, but also probably the biggest uncertain era that we've ever experienced in collegiate American athletics in your mind for colleges across the country?
It's definitely volatile, and I think it's very destructive because, like you said, the way we see college football has ceased to exist, and the fact is we're allowing all these different kinds of things. Give Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back. Like, I don't understand if all the rules that were so taboo 10 and 15 years ago are no longer a problem, then it shouldn't be an issue now. But I think it's definitely changing the game, and maybe not for good, because now everybody's going to get a deal almost to where, like you say, it's literally like free agency, like Brandon said, to where I can just turn off all the settings of the difficulty, and you get a deal. This is like the Oprah of the NFL or NCAA. You get a deal. And at some point, it's like, when are we going to stop? But obviously, since it's about money, I highly doubt that it's going to stop. It's very exhausting. And I don't look forward to see what happens next.
Gonna jump into the comment box, guys, before we continue on this conversation. And folks, our Enfuego story of the day once more: USC, UCLA, prominent members, longtime members of the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 conference, defecting and moving on, and moving, I should say, into the Big Ten effective for the 2024 school year. With that, guys, plenty of commentary real quick. First coming in from Christy Wilson, who gave us the 3 shocked face emojis for the news there. Christy also says, I guess it's official, the Pac-12 is it. I will have more about this in a moment here. Christy also says USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Tyler Work also chimes in. Here's to hoping that Hawaii joins the ACC. Got to imagine everybody would love that 13-hour flight from Syracuse to New York out to Honolulu, Hawaii. Christy further agrees, though, guys, saying this sounds exhausting to me. Yep. The mega conferences are starting to unfortunately take shape. And Christy, who's from Montana, knows about the Big Sky Conference. She says the Big Sky Conference needs to be left alone, in my opinion. I think, though, Brandon, I'll go to you on this one more so. I just still don't see how conferences like the Big Sky, the Big West, the West Coast Conference, those kind of conferences who probably aren't driven by football, how they can, for any reason, shape, form, or size, be affected by these mega conferences coming across the board with other conferences. But maybe, though, Brandon, what do you probably make, though? Is this more of like what John said about maybe this being like what he called a breadcrumb or a chip bag sort of conference now that won't be touched because of where they stand right now with there being no football in some of, with some of these schools and those conferences in your mind?
I don't know, because these smaller schools that still have football teams are going to get invited out to, these bigger schools for those cupcake games at the beginning of the year. So they'll make money that way. But outside of that, I mean, unless they get a big upset like Appalachian State did back in, the late 90s, early 2000s over Michigan. Yeah. So, if they get upset like that, I mean, all they're doing is playing for the money, and they're not going to get any recognition for it. It'll be a 40-point game at halftime, and then who knows after that. So, I mean, they'll be around. They'll be like AAA or AA going to play the major leagues. They're just going to be around there just to get the practice in and, make the money and then go home and, play their regular conference schedules.
John, do you believe that Christie might be onto something here more along the lines of your take earlier that maybe a conference like the Big Sky, who I do believe has some teams who play football, it may not be the FBS level. It's more like the FCS or 1AA. Do you, John, envision any of those smaller conferences maybe being affected by these moves being made across the board with the SEC or the Big 12 or the Big 10 in your mind at all?
I could see them maybe being affected just a little bit. But like I said, let them play their unimportant game. It's going to be 40-0 by the end of the first quarter, just like when I play Isaiah Madden because we had a stupid bet. But let them go home. Let them have their juice box and let them go home, because I think it's at some point it's like, what's the point? I understand like giving these people chances to play football, but at what cost? It's not like they're going to go to the route of Mr. Irrelevant or Brady. Like you're not going to play in the NFL. So I think what we're going to see, maybe, like Brandon said, they get their cupcake game, but over time, you could see not necessarily conferences, but certain teams kind of slowly dwindle to where they may no longer have a program. Maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, but those small programs may cease to exist. And then you go from there, and then other teams get it's a complete disaster. It's literally like, it's basically the Order 66 of college football.
No, it basically is. And Brandon brought up a very great comparison again, Appalachian State upsetting Michigan. That kind of got me wondering though, what's the greater upset? App State beating Michigan, or the NAIA Chaminade Silver Swords beating Ralph Sampson's Virginia Cavaliers in a untelevised game, which led to the Maui Invitational Classic becoming a thing in men's college basketball way back in the 70s, I believe. So that'd be a pretty good one to think as well. Yeah. Now, with that, though, guys, we go from the Big Ten, guys, now to the Pac-12, who, again, is losing 2 of their marquee flagship members. And, guys, Alex Michelson, a news anchor for KTTV Fox 11 in Los Angeles, actually brought Arash Markazi on, a talk show host on the Mightier 1090 in San Diego. John and Brandon, John, I'll start with you on this one. Arash had this comment here on the local news tonight up in LA. He says, "This is not the death of college sports. This is the death of the Pac-12 in his mind," open and close quote, because as Arash mentions here, that USC is better off in his mind sharing in the Big Ten's projected $1 billion television deal. So, John, in your mind, is this the death of the Pac-12 with the move being made here by the Bruins and by the Trojans as well earlier on Thursday?
It's the death of the Pac-12, and I think it's not necessarily a slow death of college football. I think it's in pieces of inside the college football that's having the slow death, not college football in its entire, obviously. But you can see those bits and pieces over time to kind of dwindle and not necessarily ruin the magic of college football, but it's just not going to be the same.
Brandon, I will actually defer and say that this is not the death of the Pac-12 conference, because now, though, Brandon, there's been a lot of chatter here in San Diego, and now that SDSU, San Diego State, has a new 35,000 seat or possibly 55,000 seat stadium now opening up in September for their college football program, that opens up the door, I think, for the Pac-12 to tap back into the SoCal market. And that was probably, I think, though, Brandon and John, the one thing that San Diego State needed to have happen was to have somehow, some way, have USC and UCLA lose their grip on the Southern California market for the Pac-12, because I just still felt like, though, for the longest time, that for some reason the Pac-12 would never come to San Diego because the stronghold that the Bruins and Trojans had on all of Southern California for those numerous years. But now, though, guys, with the Bruins and Trojans out of the equation, this, I believe, begins to perhaps make the Pac-12 look to poach from the Mountain West Conference. Two schools come to mind with a third option: San Diego State, Boise State, and yes, even Fresno State become my three main options.
What if I'm not good?
But Brandon, your overall thoughts more so about Arash Markarzi's comments made on KTTV, Fox 11 in Los Angeles earlier on Thursday. He says, "This is not the death of college sports. This is the death of the Pac-12 conference." But Brandon, your thoughts more so about Arash's point before I readdress my question a bit later on in this segment. What do you got for us on this take more so from Arash Markarzi?
I don't think. Right now, I will say it's not the death of the Pac-12. Are they dying slowly? Probably. If more teams decide to move out, or if they don't get teams in with big names in there to help drive up the revenue and the product, then yeah, you're probably starting to see a slow death right now until they can, another team decides to hop in there and become the face of the Pac-12, or a team that's already there steps up and say, hey, we have a chance to make this our division now, our conference. Let's do it. So, but yeah, Colin, I actually like your three teams that you want to move in there. I mean, San Diego sounds, perfect fit there. Boise State, could definitely hop in there and probably turn that conference around. So, yeah, but I don't think it's truly the death right now. I think we're slowly, if they don't make changes.
John, what do you make about those thoughts? Again, Arash Markarzi said to Fox 11 in Los Angeles earlier on Thursday evening that this is not the death of college sports, but it is the death in his mind of the Pac-12. And again, John, I spitballed off three schools I thought would be perfect fits for the for the Pac-12 from the Mountain West. San Diego State, top 25 football program. Men's basketball, always in the top 25, always selling out Viejas Arena. Then Boise State, who always has had in some capacity a foot out the door, whether it was the WAC or now the Mountain West Conference, and maybe a third in Fresno State, though, again, very consistent winner in men's basketball and in football as well, always, pumping out players, whether it be for the NBA or for the NFL usually. John, across the board with this 2-point question, John, your thoughts more so about Arash's remarks, maybe, but also your thoughts maybe about who, in fact, the Pac-12 adds in from perhaps the Mountain West Conference, maybe. What do you think?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know who they would add from the Mountain West Conference. Would have to agree with what you said, but I just honestly, I'm just perplexed of what's really happening right now in college football. I think you could go one way. I thought, oh, there's no way Texas is going to join the freaking SEC. And then here we go. So honestly, at this point, to me, it's still a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah, it is a mystery for sure. And I think, though, guys, Tyler has a great point, though, to go along with what we've said here in this segment. Tyler says, I can absolutely see some sort of mega merger between teams from the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Mountain West Conference for a mega conference merger, maybe. Again, you're looking at, part of the Midwest in the Big 12. You have two Western-based programs. If, in fact, these mega conferences become a thing, that would be a great starting point. So, Tyler, great job on that one.
Yeah.
And Adam always says, Adam Barber also chimes in, man, I miss doing shows with you guys. I'm going to put time aside to do one with you guys sometime soon, Adam. Don't worry. I do know though, Adam, that our start times are a little weird because, again, John's getting off work, James getting off work, and stuff like that. But definitely, man, for sure, we're going to make this happen very, very soon. But once more, folks, again, the in fuego story of the day once more, USC, UCLA out of the Pac-12 come 2024, moving in to the Big Ten Conference. With that, guys, over in Major League Baseball, we talked about this, guys, on Wednesday over on Coast to Coast on Sports Minute. But, of course, though, guys, that is the ongoing saga that came out of the past weekend series between the Dodgers and the Braves in Atlanta, which, of course, guys, marked Freddie Freeman's first time back in Atlanta as a visitor, marred by emotion, marred by out-of-context comments made by Clayton Kershaw, and also the stunning revelation that Freddie Freeman fired his agent in wake of news that spilled out over the course of that 3-game set in ATL that that his agent actually hid the Braves' final offer from Freddie Freeman and basically in a way kind of forced him to sign this deal in Los Angeles to play for the Dodgers. Brandon, this story I think, man, has been getting kind of weirder and weirder and weirder as this week has progressed on. Brandon, we talked about this pretty much in depth on Wednesday over on C2C. Brandon, again, what do you make about this whole situation, man? It's just one where I think it's been sad to see, but my goodness gracious, man, I've not seen seen this type of a reaction from obviously Freddie Freeman's emotion, Clayton Kershaw's kind of out of bounds remarks though about, maybe the Dodgers in Freeman's mind are right now second fiddle. Then of course Freeman fires his agent, man. Like there's been a laundry list or a CVS pharmacy receipt, my man, about just, new things coming up, on the radar here. So, Brandon, your overall thoughts more so about this very, very weird situation that Freddie Freeman now finds himself in as this week has gone on.
Yeah, it's just getting weirder because I was just reading an article today that the agent said that he's looking into filing some lawsuit against Freeman for these allegations and stuff. It said they're not true, so it's going to be one of those prove it kind of things. Who has the paperwork to prove it? To me, I kind of feel bad for Freeman because if he wanted to be a Brave, he was going to give him a discounted rate, and the Braves seem to be interested in it. I kind of feel bad, but again, it's kind of on you to be like, okay, this is all my offers. I mean, he's got the phone numbers for everybody in the Braves organization. He could have called up and be like, hey, is this really your last offer? I know that's what they got the agents for, but if you want to talk to them personally, I mean, you got the numbers. I mean, so part of it is on Freeman, but most of it's on the agent. I mean, like you said, Callan, we talked about this yesterday, and Lamar Jackson's name was brought up because he represents himself, and and I think Manfred needs to step up and maybe get involved in this and be like, okay, what happened? Where's it going? Could we see a voided contract where he becomes a free agent again and only negotiates with the Braves and Dodgers? Being the two teams that were involved, and then what does the Braves do with Matt Olson? Because if they sign Freeman, they don't trade for Matt Olson. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think nothing's going to happen. Freeman's probably going to be a Dodger, for his, to fill out this contract. But it'll be interesting to see, John, I think you brought up yesterday too, what happens with the agency that represented Freeman. are more players going to look into their representatives for this agency and be like, okay, did I get all my offers? So it's got a bad eye on the agency. Guilty innocent until proven guilty. So yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on this. And if Adam's on there, I'd like to get his perspective, being that he's a Braves fan, on what he thought. So because I think everybody thought he was going to stay with Atlanta. And maybe that was his best move. So, but yeah, this definitely will be a story that I'm going to keep an eye on.
Brandon, before I go back to John, I want to kind of add a bit of a layer to your thoughts about, and I know that you said maybe the contract could be voided. Brandon, could the Players Association maybe step in and do something on behalf of Freeman, perhaps, in your mind?
Well, that's what I think everybody needs. Anybody that's dealing with the players, from Manfred to the Players Association to both teams to, even the agency themselves could come out and say, okay, hey, yeah, he hit this. I mean, he's been fired. The Dodgers, yeah, you don't want to let a guy go, but, maybe they can, be the big person, be like, okay, Freeman didn't get his last offer. Okay, let's void the contract on our end with the agreement that we get to negotiate a new contract if he doesn't like the offer from the Braves. Player Association, yeah, they could step in easily too. And, they've stepped in nonsense issues before, just, trying to stop. I remember back in the home run chase between McGuire and Sosa, and everybody was saying Sosa was using, and Sosa stepped up and said he'd take a test any day of the week, just tell him where to go. And the Player Association said, no, we don't need that. We don't need you to go take a test, So I think the Players Association definitely needs to step into this, and so does the commissioner.
Although I would think it'd be reasonable. I don't see it coming to fruition, though, and Freeman's going to play out that contract, as Brandon said. So I definitely agree, though. We do, though, Brandon, have some commentary from Adam. He said, and he does say, as a Braves fan, I will admit I gave Freddie so much crap when he left. Now I feel bad because I'm finding out the real details. And Adam further says Freddie should have listened to Chipper.
No, and exactly right. I do Sportsman with Adam when this was all going on, and we all pegged him to sign with the Braves. We thought it was the best choice for him. And then when it came out that he was signing with the Dodgers, Adam was the first one upset. I mean, yeah, he knew, he stated that, okay, he went, for the contract, the years, but, even Adam will admit, and I'm not going to try to put too much words in his mouth, he thought something was kind of fishy at the beginning too. When he signed with the Dodgers, it's like, why couldn't the Braves offer a little bit more? I can't believe Freeman wouldn't have took a hometown discount or listened to Chipper. So yeah, so Adam is definitely right. He did come out and rip it right away, but at least he's admitting that he was wrong.
Christie also says that this Freeman situation is about to get really messy. And John, I'll go to you, man, because, we brought up Lamar Jackson, and I won't even put myself in that boat because the first day I got into broadcasting school in college, essentially, I was an apprentice at a country radio station here in San Diego out in the East County, or the eastern part of the county. And the first day I came in to learn the ropes, Chris Torek, who was the station manager and the guy who basically helped me for 2 years get my college degree, while I was learning, radio on, at the station, basically said, once you, move on, and if you want to get an agent, if they ask you for money off the bat, then you say no. So ever since, I've never have reached out to one, and nor have I been represented by any agency firm. This is why I negotiate my deals or negotiate where I work and do my games, though, mainly over the summer. Because for one, I don't work for free anymore. This is 14, soon to be 14 years in this industry, and I don't work for free anymore. But I also, work out, the pay scales, for when I get paid, what I do and stuff like that. And that's why my representation is just me, myself, and I. But I don't go through a second or third party to get advice, though, because I would think, though, and I would get a little scared, though, like if something like this came up, though, where I could have had a very big job somewhere, or done a project somewhere, but they don't show me the financial details or compensation, and I miss out on it, and whatnot going on. So that's mainly why I only I represent myself. So, John, more so your thoughts, I guess, on this whole entire ordeal, though, but mainly, who's more at fault, though, John, in your mind? The agency, Freddie Freeman, both, one of the two, or who do you think it is, JA, and why?
It literally has to be the agency. I think this is what we talk about in this industry, and what Kyle and I have been talking about, folks, is that this industry is about trust, and it's about doing things the right way. Would you rather do things the wrong way and get temporary gain, and then you get exposed later quicker than certain other broadcasters from a former network? I mean, just be freaking honest. I mean, literally any athlete that's part of Excel Sports Management, I highly suggest, again, I'm not in the industry, I don't know people with Excel Sports Management, but I highly suggest you kind of look at your situation and kind of consider getting another agent and represent yourself. You have what happened with Richard Sherman after that devastating injury in 2017, after all the other things. So I think this has to be on the agent, because you see his emotion in that press conference it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Last Friday.
Thank you. So no athlete, no person is that emotional about returning to a ballpark if he didn't intend to resign there, if it didn't mean anything to him in the first place. And I think this is going to, like I said, again, last night on Sports Minute, is that it's going to cause a mistrust between agents and players.
Yep.
In the future, could it be players and coaches and coordinators and players? And it's just a dumpster fire thing going over and over and over. And I think that you say you have to step in, but unfortunately, I think that he'll have to play as a Dodger. But I think at some point, whether it's next year, the year after, 4 or 5, 7 years, he will come back to Atlanta. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the same, or more importantly, it's not going to be the way he thought it would be. And I think this just shows the dark side of the industry, folks, where not everybody has the right intentions. Some people are going to use you, and this agent used him.
Yep.
Anybody that's in charge at Excel Sports Management, you need to revoke his license. He needs to be fired immediately. Because if he did this to Freddie Freeman and he got caught, imagine how many more people, not just this guy did too, but all the other agents of not just Excel Sports Management, but other agencies out there. This is not the first time it's happened. So let's not be shocked. This is the first time it's happened and we got caught. And so that there should be investigations in the future of, hey, if this is proven to be true, it's happened with Freddie Freeman. Imagine how, let's open up investigations. Does this happen to this other player? This happened to this guy. And I think this is going to cause a snowball effect of potentially, maybe I'm wrong, investigations and mistrust. And it's just a complete disaster. And that agent should be absolutely ashamed. And I hope he gets fired.
And I remember, actually, guys, on the broadcast side, I remember when Colin Cowherd first jumped from ESPN to FS1. He came on the air, in the herd on his first day at FS1, and basically, had laid out why he left ESPN for FS1. And then he said, I changed my agents, and I told him, go get me yeses. And that was a agent who had his client's best interest in mind. Freddie Freeman's agent did not have his best interest in mind, though, if he's going to be hiding offers from him and stuff of that caliber. And Adam, I think, guys, has the best comment of the segment here. Lesson learned for any young players: stay in places that make you happy. Don't worry about the money. Play where you're happy. I think that, fellas, we all agree here.
And before we move on, I mean, that statement right there could be in general for everybody.
Yes, everything.
I've had many people come up to me at my job and be like, "Hey, I put in a job offer for this. What do you think?" It's like, hey, you gotta make yourself happy. If you think it's the best offer for you, best opportunity for yourself, go take it. But I've seen people come back, oh God, that wasn't that great of a deal. It's like, hey, lesson learned. Not just because the money's there doesn't mean it's the best offer and the best for you. So, that advice right there, Adam, I think a lot of people can look to and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can get $12 here or whatever, but I'm making 10. I'm happy where I'm at. I know a lot of people, and they're supporting me and my family. So, that's definitely a good quote there, Adam.
Yeah, very well said by Adam again from C2C. But once more, folks, this Freddie Freeman saga keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder as this week has gone on. With that, gents, we'll segue over to the NFL, guys, and we will start in Cleveland, Ohio. A report from ESPN today, fellas, says that Baker Mayfield and the Browns, they both have said that they have moved on from each other, despite, of course, guys, the off-the-field issues plaguing current Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson at this rate. Brandon, we'll start with you on this one, man. I think that maybe John and I and James talked about this here on ISIN back when some of the first news came out about Deshaun Watson's off-the-field legal woes right now. But Brandon, this, I think, though, you said this, I think, actually on Coast to Coast or right here on ISIN, or it may have been Mess Around Dave who said it, though. But one of you guys said it, though, that there would come a point in time, though, where the Browns would have to basically kiss Baker's rear end to get him to come back to Cleveland. And I think that right now that ship has already sailed down the river. But your thoughts, though, Brandon, on the remarks made by both Baker Mayfield and the Browns, both saying that they both have moved on from each other despite Deshaun Watson's off-the-field issues right now.
Well, it's kind of funny how the Browns could say they moved on. I can see Baker saying he moved on. I mean, because right now there's nothing he can do. He can't just, he could say he's going to sit out a year, but he can't just go up and say, yep, I'm going to sign with the Jets tomorrow, because of contracts. But for the Browns to say they moved on, well, then trade the guy. I mean, plain and simple. If you moved on, trade him. The whole, Watson thing, I mean, that's, I've said it before that it's a win-lose for the Browns. I'm glad my team didn't touch him because I think it was a big issue to start with from day one. And, now more and more are coming out. So, but I don't know how the Browns can say they moved on when they still have Baker Mayfield here. It's like, I'm going to use one of John's analysis. If you're dating somebody, you're like, yeah, I moved on, but yet, you're still seeing with that person and out to dinner with that person, you're staying with that person, but yet you claim you moved on, then move on. I mean, nothing's keeping you there. So we'll see where it goes, but like a lot of people said, only in Cleveland this could have happened too. So,
John, I think Christy Wilson has the best comment so far here. The Browns are dealing with way too much drama at the moment. Of course, though, John, this is one of your bigger rivals in the AFC North Division, being a Bengals fan. And I think, though, John, it just goes back to the rhetoric that we had said, though, in some roundabout way, though. And I think Mess Around Dave said it. You may have said it. Brandon said it, I think, at one point, where Cleveland itself would have to basically, try to repatch the relationship with Baker Mayfield now because of them, shelling out this money for Deshaun Watson, knowing, though, of all the baggage that he's carrying with him into Cleveland again with 24 lawsuits that are going on right now and playing out in court right now. There may be, there's been some rumblings or maybe the rumor mill swirling that he's going to be suspended for the full season coming up here for 2022. But, John, where do you stand more so about seeing the Browns and Mayfield at an impasse right now, but both sides saying that they both have moved on despite what has, again, plagued the Browns right now with Deshaun Watson's off-the-field issues right now at this juncture?
To put this into perspective, Deshaun, I think the Browns knew that there's a good chance he's going to be suspended for a year when they signed him in March or April. So his salary this year is $1 million base salary.
Yep.
Meaning that he was going to be suspended. So technically, this is almost like a 6-year type of deal thing. It's weird. So in 2023 and beyond for 5 years, he'd get that $46 million every single season. So for the Browns and Browns fans, I give them full permission to completely disown. Like I have never seen in my entire life that I can remember, and I've been watching sports since 2006, the biggest middle finger, the biggest F you to a single franchise player, to a single starting quarterback in the NFL, to a guy who is not going to play this year. I guarantee, I think literally anybody could have seen the writing on the wall. Anybody that's shocked by that is delusional. He may not play in 2023. He may have to apply to be reinstated. So it's not even guaranteed he'll play in 2023. And he'll still get $45 to $45.5 million. I have never seen a team, and maybe Big B, you could attest to this or not, I'm not sure, that is willing to sacrifice their morals for a potential championship, even well and know it's not going to happen because he's not playing this year. And he's most likely not going to play next year if his reinstated doesn't get accepted. Just because he reinstated doesn't mean he gets accepted. It happened with Josh Gordon. I thank gosh he's getting back in the NFL, but so many other guys that haven't applied to get reinstated. You haven't seen certain guys playing 9 years, cough, or other players. It's just the Browns are literally a dumbass organization. It blows my mind. I have never seen a team in all of sports. I don't know about like the sport for other sports yet, but the Browns are stupid. Literally, I feel bad for anybody. Andrew Berry, you're a clown. The head coach Stefanski, I don't know if he had a lot of say in it. And if he didn't, I feel terrible for him because you're in the worst situation possible. You have Kareem Hunt coming out and saying that this has been a stressful situation. Mm-hmm. No kidding. Jacoby Brissett is your quarterback? Jacoby Brissett for 2022. This is not like Tyrod Taylor with the Texans when they were doing something. Now the Texans suck. This is Jacoby Brissett. I mean, literally, this guy was going to replace freaking Andrew Luck. He got a 2-year deal. That didn't work. So it's a disaster. You can put all the weapons around him, but you don't have a quarterback. Why don't you trade him? He's not going to play for you. You could give him your social security number. You can give him the keys to the Lambo. You can give him the keys to your hottest daughter. It's not going to matter. Baker's saying, F you, I'm out of here. And I get mad because it helps me out because they suck. But the stupidity of a franchise, Callan and Big B, it just blows my mind. You're willing to sacrifice nearly your soul and your morals for a guy that we don't know what the facts are and that he's not going to play this year. Seriously? And I said this before, my last point. You do not give a quarterback fully guaranteed money. It doesn't work. It didn't work for Cousins. It didn't work for obviously Watson. You've seen it in the past, literally 15 to 20 years. I'm not going to list every single Super Bowl winner. You can look that up. None of them in NFL history have had a fully guaranteed contract quarterback and have won a Super Bowl. So it just blows my mind. And anybody that made that decision for the Browns absolutely needs to be fired immediately because the Dolphins did due diligence because he was going to go to Miami. That was pretty much a story out there. So hats off to 31 other organizations or 10 or 12 organizations that did not cave in. That the Browns were pretty much out. Then they basically caved in. So anybody that made that decision for the Browns, you need to be fired immediately because you are a joke and disaster for the National Football League.
I mean, the only situations I would think that kind of compare, and I might be way off base on this, but I'll still throw them out there about a team maybe a team willing to sacrifice a player's season to win it all. Almost kind of makes me think about Kobe's rape case in the early 2000s, and maybe even Trevor Bauer's suspension in baseball last season, where I don't think the Dodgers were able to void his contract during the course of his suspension last season. I might be wrong on that, but those two kind of come to mind, though. But again, folks, per some reports from ESPN and NFL sources, both Baker Mayfield and the Browns both say that they both have moved on, despite, again, the ongoing issues lingering over the head right now of their new quarterback in Deshaun Watson. With that, though, Brandon and John, another perhaps drastic change coming to pro sports and sports for that matter. The NFL has announced plans to hire an executive truly dedicated guys to helping the league navigate the waters of nothing perhaps better or worse than sports wagering and sports betting, guys. We have seen, though, over the past, I'd say, year or two maybe with Fox and ESPN adding in daily wagering shows on their networks. Either it's the Daily Wager or Lock It In on FS1 or the Daily Wager on ESPN. More and more of the sports networks like MLB Network and NHL Network are now doing fully devoted hour-long wagering and betting shows now for those who play DraftKings or FanDuel. And John, this to me feels like a very slippery slope. As someone who works in college athletics, I'm legally not allowed to wager on college games because I work inside of D1 and D2 athletics. But John, knowing kind of the troubled history we've had here in sports, Pete Rose with the Reds, the Chicago White Sox and the 8 men out back in the 1910 or 1912 World Series, Evander Kane of the San Jose Sharks, now the Edmonton Oilers, maybe, perhaps was, wagering on games he was playing in. I know that betting now, John, is kind of taking on a new life. We actually had plans or have plans here to actually begin our own wagering show here on ISIN with Stephen Wang and Shri Anand called the Sports Exchange sometime once the season rolls around for college and the NFL, though. But, John, I still, though, feel some restraint, though, by leagues really kind of in a way force-feeding this stuff down our throats, though, whether it's the ads or whether it's even these hour-long shows, though. Though I do know, though, John, that this, I think, though, is like a new way to get people to come to games, come watch games because of how fantasy sports and how wagering and betting has now just exploded, I'd say. And I know that I used to be a very big fantasy football and baseball and basketball player and hockey player for fantasy sports, though. But with wagering and betting, though, John, it seems great, though. But I'm still a bit hesitant and a bit still kind of resisting the urge, though, to fully embrace it. Nor can I, though, because of me working in both D1 and D2 athletics, though. But John, now, though, a sports league out there, JA, is hiring somebody strictly devoted to just being in charge of the league's wagering and betting laws, basically, or their betting aspects. John, is this going to help or hurt the NFL and pro sports in your mind if more and more leagues go this route eventually?
Honestly, I don't think it's going to help. And this is the problem I have, is that you literally have advocated for betting for years with Madden Ultimate Team. Literally, where people have to put in money to it's not guaranteed that you're going to win. It's not guaranteed that your team is going to win, but you're going to put in your money anyways. It's been legalized a couple years ago. They had issues with their game with calling it gambling. Those were issues then. So if you're going to have those sports betting shows, what is the point of suspending Calvin Ridley? I mean, seriously, you're going to suspend him for betting on games? But yet you're only suspend a guy a year for something that we don't know about yet? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's super hypocritical. Which one do you want, NFL? Do you want to encourage sports betting, which I agree is a very slippery slope, and I, of course, cannot bet on sports teams or anything pertaining to the NBA, but I just think it's so laughable that you'll suspend a player for something that you're advocating for. You're doing NFTs now, which you see a lot of people using that to scam people, so I'm not saying it's a scam, but it's just you're going to use – some people are going to use it for the wrong, and it's just – some sports bettors out there are actually frauds. So it's like, who are you going to trust? This goes back to not every single person in this industry is doing it for the right reasons. And so I don't watch a sports betting show. I honestly don't care. Like, I just want to get my regular stuff for football and basketball and potentially soccer and baseball. But I think it's super hypocritical because the NFL is sending a confusing message, like you said, like a slippery slope. Which one do you want? Do you want to advocate for legalized gambling, which is still not legal in, I think, a lot of states?
California is one of them.
Exactly.
Minnesota.
California is a big market. You have the Rams, you have the Chargers, and many other teams outside of just the NFL. So which one do you want? How can you help this legalized sports betting, which is gambling? You don't want to use the word, but it's gambling. But states like California, Minnesota, and other states it's still illegal. Like, there's no legal loophole, so it just doesn't make any sense. And it's like the NFL is always sending confusing messages. Which one do you want? Legalized gambling for sports players or no? That to me is that's the only answer. You need to answer that, because now if you're starting to legalize this and make it more acceptable, well, then you just gave Calvin and said, hey, F you're suspended for a year. Like, what are you doing? It just doesn't make any sense.
Brandon, I'm so happy that John brought up Calvin Ridley's year-long suspension from the No Fun League for wagering or betting on games. Because now, though, Brandon, with all this stuff surrounding gambling and the ads for FanDuel and DraftKings and all these networks having, the Daily Wager, Lock It In, what have you. And then, MLB Network has their own gambling show now with Matt Vasgersian and Ariel Epstein. And, the NHL Network has the same thing with the Vegas Sports Insider Network, VSIN or whatever it is in Vegas, though. But now though, Brandon, now you open up Pandora's box now, because now we had a league here suspend a guy for a full year for wagering on games. But yet now we think about Pete Rose. We think about the Black Sox scandal in the 1910 World Series, though. But now all of a sudden that this is, all, goody two-shoes. But wait a second. The all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball is not in the Hall of Fame because he wagered on his team to win the World Series, or Shoeless Joe Jackson being banned for life from baseball because he bet on his team to lose the World Series against the Reds, though. So, Brandon, you and I are in the same boat here. We really can't legally gamble on sports in California and in Minnesota because, again, there's no legislation in place right now. But also, I do remember, though, during part of the summer, up until recently, that there was a lot of ads, though, from the Pechanga group of Indians, Sequan, Viejas, all the Native American tribes saying, please don't vote don't vote to legalize it because you're hurting our business by not coming out to the nation and to the reservation to gamble with us, on our property, because that's a lot of money that we get, and stuff like that. And I was making a point to go out there and, play a few games here, though, but again, support those out there who've been, very, such great community ambassadors. Saquon's had a very great relationship with the Padres, I want to say for like 22, 25 years, it feels like. And then, Viejas sponsoring the new, the arena at San Diego State for basketball. Pechanga sponsoring the sports arena here in San Diego, that they have done so much great work, though. And then to see these outside corporations like FanDuel and DraftKings come in and basically try to, make, sports wagering a thing, though. I, for one, would probably go to Vegas and put some money down on, games that don't involve college athletics, though. But, though, Brandon, I'm still very concerned, though, that this may not be a good thing, though. And now, though, again, though, Brandon, it's not just about the gambling. Now it's literally, though, my man, that we have the NFL front office hiring somebody to be in charge of the wagering side. Where, again, though, as well, though, Brandon and John, the big issue for so long about Vegas not having, professional sports teams was, well, how are you going to police these guys when what are they going to do when they, go out in Vegas, and the NHL, I think, though, Brandon, quaffed that argument right away by saying players know what they're supposed to do, not supposed to do. But we're going to have, security watching these guys. We're going to have, a lot of loopholes in place. And even then, though, Brandon, a lot of NHL teams now don't travel into Vegas until the day of their game to avoid the Vegas flu, as they call it, because you don't want to get tempted by that roulette wheel. Yeah, she's pretty. Yeah, your number may come up, though. But, hey, think you have a game coming up later tonight. So, Brandon, your overall thoughts more so, again, about the NFL hiring somebody or hiring a league executive now to basically be in charge now of the league's sports betting and wagering landscape right now, as, again, this becomes another thing that is, again, kind of propelling sports into the future generations and years to come right now, is wagering and gambling.
Yeah, it's been a touchy subject all around us. It's growing every day. Every state around Minnesota has legalized gambling, so working in the casino business, it's kind of hurting because they can drive to Wisconsin, Iowa, the Dakotas, Illinois, and get their fix on gambling. So, but overall, hiring somebody directly, to me, that makes it seem like they're trying to hire somebody to oversees the players gambling, is what I kind of am thinking. So we'll see how that plays out.
True point.
So they're probably writing up, policies, say, hey, if you're going to gamble, you can gamble on anything outside the NFL, or, if you're going to gamble on the NFL, then you can't gamble on your team or something like that. So, which is going to be probably a book that's used to be as big as the, phone books that we used to get. I mean, because there's going to be so many guidelines and all that. So, but yeah, I think it is the NFL that did squash that right away and say, okay, if we're playing in Vegas, we're going to travel as a team into the arena. We're going to leave as a, team outside, leave at the same time. So they did it right there. But, but like you said, Callan, now you got to talk about Pete Rose. Can we reinstate him? Shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, we're not stupid. We know players play fantasy football or baseball. I mean, heck, we just had a player.
Tommy Pham, Jock Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and all that's gambling. I mean, how many people, throw $20 in an office pool for the NCAA tournament? That's gambling. I mean,
or if they buy squares for the Super Bowl.
Yep, squares for the Super Bowl. I mean, that's gambling too. So, I mean, so we all know it's there. We all know people do it. So seeing what this job's going to entitle for the NFL, and I mean, God, right now I can't even turn on wrestling right now without FanDuel having an ad on there or having little banners around ringside. So, it's getting out there slowly but surely. Probably within the next few years, every state will have gambling in there somewhere, form or another. So it's one of those things where, it brings more excitement to the, sport itself. You're watching more games. I mean, honestly, I become a bigger football fan lately because of fantasy football and stuff, because yeah, you got to watch every game just to see how your player's doing, so I think it'll bring the draw in for that specific sport, that specific game, and then, now some places, mainly in Vegas, they have the live betting. So you can sit there and watch the game. You can bet on the pitch. You can bet on it if it's a ground out. You can bet on, is this guy going to hit a home run or a double or, yeah. So they're going to get a lot of depth into it and stuff like that. So, just, words of advice. If you're going to gamble, just gamble what you can afford to lose and not go do your whole bank account, mortgage on your house, your kid's future, stuff like that. If you can only afford to lose $100, hey, play it until you lost it. So.
And I'm glad, though, if anything, that NHL Network, the NFL Network, MLB Network, or ESPN or Fox, when they do, in fact, conclude the show, they always say, problem gambling, please call the 1-800-GAMBLER or whatever the line is. Christy Wilson, guys, she says that she cannot bet on sports using DraftKings because it's not legal in her state of Montana. Sports betting, however, is legal in Montana through the Montana State Lottery. And to Brandon's point about ads for DraftKings or FanDuel, I have to deal with DraftKings being mentioned on AEW Dynamite on TNT every Wednesday night. So definitely we'll see how things go with the gambling side now, with the NFL hiring a executive to mainly perhaps monitor, as B said, monitor the gambling side of the National Football League. With that, guys, it is June 30th. It's the last Thursday of June. That also means it is the opening day of NBA free agency. And guys, but with that, though, 5 notable names have signed extensions or signed new contracts, including, guys, we'll start off here with Nikola Jokic, 2-time NBA MVP, signing the richest contract in league history, 5 years, $264 million, I should say, $264 million. With Denver, but also that could, though, per Woj, guys, become a contract worth $303 million for the Joker in Denver. Bradley Beal back to the Wizards, 5 years, $251 million. Devin Booker, a 4-year extension for $214 million to stay in Phoenix. Karl Anthony Towns stays with the T-Wolves, 4 years, $224 million. And Grizzlies star sensation John Morant, 5 years, $193, which could, though, inflate to $231 million over the life of the contract. Brandon, I'll start with you, though, man. Out of these 5 contracts signed today, a lot of great, a lot of high money here being thrown around here by Denver and Washington, the Suns, your beloved T-Wolves, and the Grizzlies. Brandon, out of the 5 contracts that we mentioned here, which one probably in your mind is a bit surprising, maybe the one that catches your eye the most so far during at least day one here of free agency?
I mean, you just look at the dollars and years, and like Cat signed a 4-year extension for $224 or $244 or whatever. I mean, that's $56 million a year. So it's like, I mean, the numbers in general just shock me every time they come out because, basketball has the salary cap, but yet if the teams are willing to pay over the salary cap, they can. They pay luxury tax, and then if the team's with the team, then they can sign up for, the Supermax deal. I mean, they got so different levels of these contracts that, I mean, I don't even know what the salary cap is right now, but Cat's going to be eating about half of that, just by himself. I don't know how you can build a team with one player making half of your salary. I mean,
Brandon,
I think, yeah.
Just to interrupt real quick, the NBA's salary cap for this season was set about 7 hours ago today to $123.655 million. 123.655. The tax level is 150.267 for this upcoming season.
So the salary cap's at 123. So Cat's going to eat 56 of that. So that leaves you roughly what, 70 million and change? Yeah. To fill out your roster. Well, I think it's Russell's got 40 million coming to him or close to it. So now you're down to, another 40 million there, or 30 million,
Hernan Gomez is on the market after he got waived by Utah, just saying.
Yeah, it's just and then the luxury tax is at what, 156 you said?
Yeah, 150 and change this year.
Yeah, so it's just, if you're going to have a salary cap, then it has to be a hard cap. You can't spend over that. I mean, these players, yes, people come to me all the time. Well, you wouldn't turn down the money. You're right. If my job offered me twice of what I'm going to get paid for right now, I'd be stupid to say, nope, I don't think I'm worth that. I mean, of course, you're going to sign or work for what somebody offers you. You would be a fool not to go for that. But, I think Harden, if Harden stays to his word, I think he opted out, but he's willing to stay with the 76ers and make it a friendly deal. We kind of talked about this yesterday.
Yes.
A friendly deal to where the team can still build a contender. Hey, if he does that, more props to him. I mean, a lot of these players, after one season at making $40 million, that sets you up for life. I mean, that sets up your grandkids, your kids, 3 generations down the road probably forever. So, like Barbara said earlier, the money ain't all greener. I mean, just be happy that you're a pro athlete and you're playing in front of fans. Yes, you probably have to, pay for your own insurance and stuff like that. I get that. That costs money, but, I go back to the Latrell Sprewells of the late or early 2000s. Oh, I can't feed my family on $20 million. Really? I mean, give me $1 million and, I'll feed everybody's family. So, but it's just, I might be talking two-faced here. I think players are getting paid ridiculous, but yet again, I get it. You got to support your family and stuff. I get that too. But, everybody says, well, the fans need to stop going. Yeah, you're right. The fans need to stop going, supporting these teams. But it's just ridiculous to see how these players, Michael Jordan made probably a third of that in his whole playing career, and he's considered one of the greatest. So,
absolutely.
Just think about, I'm trying to think of the Bucks guy.
Giannis.
Yeah. What's his contract going to be like when he comes up? Ball, what's his contract going to be like when he becomes a free agent? Even the Wolves rookie a couple years ago, like Anthony, what's his contract going to be like when his rookie deal's up? I mean, these dollar figures are just going to be so outrageous that they're going every team's going to be paying the luxury tax. You might as well just make that the new salary cap. So it's getting out of hand, I think.
And again, folks, the NBA did confirm earlier on Thursday that the salary cap for the year is $123.655 million, with the tax level being at $150.267 million this season for the upcoming 22-23 NBA season. But again, though, John, let me just rattle off these again real quick here again, folks. The 5 biggest names, or perhaps 5 notable moves made on day one of free agency. Again, Nikola Jokic, 2-time league MVP. Back to Denver, 5 years, $264 million, which could, though, be bumped up to $303 million per Woj, the largest contract ever given in NBA history. Bradley Beal back to the Wizards, 5 years, $251 million. Devin Booker back to the Suns, 4 years, $214 million. Karl Anthony Towns to the T-Wolves, 4 years, $224. And John Morant back to Memphis, 5 years, $193. That could, though, also be bumped up to $231 million. So, John, I think, though, Brandon has a very fair point, though, that the contract money is getting, very, very perhaps out of control, though. But at the same time, with how, we've seen our own money perhaps, inflate over the past, several months and stuff like that, it should be no surprise. I'm more, I think, not really perplexed, but more like stunned, though, about the number of years, though, that these guys are getting, though, 4-year deals, 5-year deals. Like it's multi-year deals, set up for, 4 or 5 seasons, though. But again, Jokic, 303, that could be, that becomes the richest contract in the NBA. Again, it goes from 264 to 303 with his existing contract.
Yep.
So, but again, though, John, out of these 5 contracts, which one probably in your mind is more surprising or more, eye-opening, seeing how much bank these guys are going to be getting over the next 4 to 5 years in your mind?
Maybe the Morant one, I'm happy he got it.
Same.
Jokic, though, I and this maybe because it's just a team whole. This team has underperformed, just like the 76ers. Time and time again, they've come in short. But I think for him as an individual player, I think this is the difference we need to separate between the team success and the individual player. He's been phenomenal. Wasn't he like a 2nd-round pick or so? And when he got drafted, so he was
I think so.
Pick. And if anybody's watching that doesn't follow the NBA, there's only 2 rounds, I believe, 60 picks. So getting a mid-2nd round pick it's almost like being Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL. So his story's been really good. I'm happy that he got it. A shocker, though. I mean, I think for rattling off a couple of those, what were the other few you had?
You had Bradley Beal back to the Wizards, 5 years, $251. Devin Booker to Phoenix, 4 years, $214. Karl Anthony Towns, Minnesota, 4 years, $224. And as you alluded to, John Morant with Memphis, 5 years, $193. That could, though, be bumped up to $231 million.
I was maybe surprised, not that he got paid, but Karl Anthony Towns, he still has 2 years left in his – not because he's in Minnesota, not because of anything else. He still has 2 years left on his deal, but I think this is how Minnesota is committed to him and this organization. I believe they attempted at a playoff run last year, and usually when you say playoffs in Minnesota, it doesn't mix, but it's
unless it's the Lynx.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like something is clicking. Maybe there's just a small light there with the Timberwolves, and you just keep finding that switch or keep finding that light and keep turning on all those lights and keeps flickering. That light bulb in the head for there in Minnesota is starting to click. But I hope John Morant and that team figures it out because they have a really good player, and I don't want his prime to be wasted just because of a team that sucks really bad.
Honestly, I would go with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. I go with Beal, though, because we talked about this, I think, Brandon and John on Sportsman and on C2C on Wednesday, that there was a lot of, maybe confusion or like a lot of questions about Bradley Beal, and him signing Bastille Steel with the Wizards shows that L word that's not talked about a lot. That's loyalty, and I said this about Giannis re-signing with Milwaukee after they got knocked out by Miami in the bubble in 2019-2020. Then he signs that contract. It's like, that word is just not used anymore in sports now because guys are more in it again for the endorsements and the money and chasing the rings, though, where guys just don't play out their contracts or don't play for, they don't truly play for the city. They don't truly play for the fan base, despite the contracts, though. But that's why they're getting paid this much, though, because people want to go see these guys play, though. And when you turn your back on an organization, to go and play in a bigger market like Los Angeles or in Chicago or in, New York or Boston, that just proves to me that you're not in it for us small people who want to see our teams win. That's why I have had so much love and respect for Eric Hosmer and Manny Machado coming to San Diego and not, looking and saying, no, I'm going to go to LA. Now I'm going to go play in Colorado. I'm going to go play in Seattle or go play in San Francisco or in New York or in Boston or Chicago. And no, they saw San Diego and said, you know what? I'm going to change the narrative and actually go there. Will I win? Maybe, maybe not, but change the culture. And that's what I think I'm more proud about with Bradley Beal and also with Devin Booker. So I know earlier on Thursday, there was a lot of reports, guys, about Devin Booker going to Brooklyn to be dealt for Kevin Durant earlier today, though. But Devin signs that contract, though. Again, loyalty is another thing there, But more so with me, but more so for me, I go with Beal and Booker. And I throw Nikola Jokic in there, though, too. Again, a diamond in the rough find by the Nuggets, though. And a guy who I think, though, has, helped the Nuggets turn a corner. I love Michael Malone as their head coach. I love Nikola. They need more guys around, though, but I love seeing those guys. I think all the guys on this list, though, Jokic, Beal, D-Book, Cat, and Morant, I love seeing these guys sign these contracts and proving to those, sportsmen like me, we will be loyal to our fan base. Denver, who wants a winner, who's already had 2 winners with the Avalanche and the Mammoth this past, week or so with the lacrosse team in the Stanley Cup Championship. The Wizards looking to win their first title since 1978, for heaven's sakes, when Wes Unseld was the MVP and Rookie of the Year that season. Of course, the Suns, 3 finals trips, 3 losses. The Timberwolves trying their best to get, to finally get back in the playoff mix and finally do some damage. And, of course, Memphis, great start last season. Great storyline, though. Ran out of gas, though, in the postseason, but they're going to be come back for more, though. So I applaud those 5 guys so much, though. As a fellow small market fan like Brandon in Minnesota, John, of course, in Cleveland with the Cavaliers, though, this is what makes us 3 guys on this panel so happy about for these 5 guys, because they're being loyal. They're not going to go and chase rings and chase the commercial spots and all that other nonsense and leave us, small market fans high and dry. But again, Nikola Jokic to Denver, 5 years, $264. That could, though, climb to $303, the largest contract given in NBA history. Bradley Beal with the Wizards, 5 years, $251. Devin Booker to Phoenix, 4 years, $214. Karl Anthony Towns, 4 years, $224. And again, John Morant with Memphis, 5 years, $193. That could climb, though, to $201 million as well. Guys, we have one question here from our good pal, Christy Wilson. John, to you first. Where do you believe, or where do you see Kevin Durant going now that he has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets? Well, let me first, though, John, get on the soapbox here and do my best Stephen A. impersonation. Didn't I tell you? Did I not tell you? I viewers out there, coast-to-coast viewers, IM6, MI6, panel members and viewers, did I not tell you the Brooklyn Nets were not going to win a championship with Irving and Durant together and James Harden together? And I had a lot of Twitter bots and a lot of armchair media members saying I'm smoking weed in San Diego. I'm an idiot. Get out of the industry, even though I've been in for 13 years. And I didn't know what I was talking about. But once again, guys, I'm going to die on this hill. Super teams don't work out right away. And again, guys, I think it's just so poetic, though, that the same day that they, I think, signed to go to Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant both make the Nets crash like a cheap tent in inclement weather. John, your overall thoughts more so. Where do you see Kevin Durant going now that he's requested a trade out of the borough of Brooklyn?
This is why you never trade for a player that dates a Kardashian. Really. This is the same thing, and this is why you don't. Literally, another example is back in Cleveland with what's his name, when he clearly had more than one woman, and clearly more women in on the table than he did at championship rings because he's a bum. Can't remember his name because he was a bum, but this is not a shocker though. And this is the thing where, like, I think when people think when you build a super team that everything's going to go coincidentally so easy, it's going to be so simple. And I think this is where I think Steve Kerr gets some credit though, in terms of being handled. It could, in terms of handling, having this, what you could call it, a super team, whatever you want to call it, because with the greater the amount of super team players on your team, the brighter the personality, the harder the personality is to deal with guys like Draymond and so many others. And so give him full credit, but this is not a shocker. I mean, literally, Ben Simmons' 3-point percentage, I'm pretty sure, is a quarter of his followers on Instagram. I mean, this guy's a bum. Harden is past his prime, and it obviously wasn't going to work in Brooklyn. It's not going to work in Philadelphia. I'm not surprised, and I'm sorry, but I don't see KD being a number one guy. I don't see Kyrie being a number one guy. It didn't work out in Boston. It clearly didn't work out this past year. You still had Blake Griffin. You still had Andre Drummond. You can't say, oh, because of Kyrie and his issues off the field. You cannot use that as an excuse. Kevin Durant's supposed to be this number one guy. Golden State wasn't his team. It was Steph Curry's team.
Yep.
So, honestly, I don't know where they would go. I think it's so perplexed, but Kyrie's going to go to LA. Not a shock. Him and LeBron, I guess, are cool and that relationship has mended. But for KD, I don't know. For me, unlike the NFL, where there's like a home, there's an easy one to pick because there's a couple of teams that really could be interesting. But I think with what could be in stand is, what is Brooklyn going to do? What are they going to do with Simmons? What are they going to do with those other players that they have? I mean, literally a team that was more together was a team with D'Angelo Russell in 2019. They went to Golden State in 5-6 games in the first round of the playoffs. They had less drama with that team. So super teams can coincide. But my gosh, didn't we tell you? We were more right. Callan and I and so many others tried to freaking tell y'all, you can't have two guys that score 30-plus a night be the number one and the number two option. It's not going to happen. It's like having Dame Lillard and Kevin Durant. It's not going to work. And so, honestly, I don't know where KD goes, but I would be shocked if Irving doesn't go to LA. Whatever we can do to keep him multiple states away from Cleveland and Texas, I'm good to go.
Again, Brandon, I will say here, and I think I told John before the show, if anyone out there was expecting Durant or Irving to be dealt today on opening day of free agency, pump the brakes. It's going to be a while. I mean, this may be, in a way, almost like Freddie Freeman, though, Brandon, where they won't get dealt or sign with anybody till like maybe the last minute before the preseason or training camp opens up, though. But Brandon, to answer Christy's question, though, where do you believe that you see Kevin Durant going now that he's requested out of Brooklyn in your mind?
Oh, man, it's tough. I mean, all signs point to LA, all signs maybe New York. I hope not Minnesota, but could he fit here as a veteran leadership to the young Wolves that we got? Yes. Talent-wise, he could probably fit in. I would take that in a heartbeat, but I don't know. Maybe Miami. I mean, but the thing is, kind of what John was saying, you can't have two guys scoring 30-plus points. So if you already got that scorer, he's going to have his ego checked to be like, hey, come in, lead our young team. We got our guys that can score. Hey, if you put up 25 and we win, great. If you put up 40 and we lose, hey, we got something to talk about, So I think more or less it's going to be him having to check his ego at the door when he gets traded to whichever team he wants. I know he's sent out I saw two teams, but the Nets could draft something to where I think one of our comments was that he'll go to whatever team gives him the most. You're exactly right. So right there, LA, the Lakers are out because the Lakers have zero assets to send to New York or to Brooklyn, so they're out. So unless they get a third or fourth team involved, I will be shocked right now if he ends up with the Lakers. So, but I don't know right now. It's too early to see who's going to sniff around. I did read an article that less than half the teams called Brooklyn right away when this news came out and find out what the asking price was. So, yeah, Colin, I'm with you. It's going to take a while for these big moves to be made.
Yeah, and I believe I read a report as well, Brandon, that the Lakers have pulled out of Durant. They're now fully on board with getting Kyrie Irving more than Kevin Durant. Before I give my my one team or two teams who I think he may work with, Tyler says KD is going to go wherever the Nets or whoever offers the Nets the most. They traded away so much to put the super team together that they have to try and get back whatever they can. Now, Miami is on my list, but guys, this one might be a shell shocker for you here. But I've been pondering this for a bit. Not mainly because of the team or who's on the roster or the coach, but more of like something again that I brought up a bit earlier again about not necessarily loyalty, but more so again like off the court stuff though. Kevin Durant will be a Philadelphia 76er. I say that because Kevin Durant has off the court ventures as a part owner of the MLS team in Philadelphia. And I think he would be a little bit more resolved maybe to stay in that part of the country. I know that the Nets wouldn't trade inside the division though, but at least though, with how players though, as we've seen, like LeBron and Steph maybe, with their off-the-court activities, whether it's endorsements, commercials, what have you. Something has kind of been tugging at me that Durant would want to stay in that area, though, because he has ownership in two different soccer clubs up there, Philadelphia Union of the MLS and the NJNY Gotham of the NWSL. I know it wouldn't work on the floor maybe, but at least just kind of like thinking, though, outside the box, though, of, going there is one thing. But what about my other endeavors? What about if I call it quits after a couple years? Oh, I doubt that. But again, having all that other off the court stuff, though. And again, I know I just, got on a soapbox about, loyalty being a thing, though. But at this stage, though, of Kevin Durant's career, though, I mean, 10, 15 years in, maybe, how much more time does he have playing basketball? When is that time going to come, though? Much like how some people have been saying this about Candace Parker. When is that time going to come, though, when basketball won't be everything in him? But Candace again has her roles, though, with TNT and CBS Sports, though, during the course of March Madness, though. But one has to wonder, though, and especially I think, though, guys, that even goes with James Harden, who has ownership stake in the Houston Dynamo and the Dash of both the MLS and the NWSL. Is sometimes when does that other side of the sports world kind of become intriguing? Whether it's the ownership side, the GM side, basketball operation side. Now, again, I think Durant has a lot left to offer, but at least on the floor, though, that wouldn't work in my mind. Again, bad coaching Doc Rivers. Joel Embiid is always in his feelings when the team is not doing great, more so. And also his health, though, is also a very big thing, but also is there enough assets there? So right now, I know that I said Philadelphia, but at the same time, I don't really know what it's going to be. But again, though, like I said, though, and what Brandon agreed with me, though, it's going to be a while before Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant do, in fact, go somewhere else. And also, Tyler says, side note, fellas, we're getting closer to one of the best holidays of the year. Brandon, I know you're ready, man. It's Bobby deferred payment day in about 22 minutes here on the left coast.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the greatest sports holidays for sure of all.
I still don't know how he got that contract negotiated. I really, and if there is a documentary, please point it out. But I really hope they come out with a documentary on how this deal worked out, because I really want to hear about it.
Maybe Freddie Freeman should have hired Bonilla's agent to do this last round of things. I think it was more of the agent who pulled this off, not Bobby Bonilla, but I think it was agent.
It definitely was the agent. I mean, that's definitely the agent. But yeah,
that would though be a good 30 for 30. What if I told you? That would be a pretty good 30 for 30. With that, though, guys, we're going to actually segue away from the main sports world to get into one that I know that Brandon and Christy thoroughly love and I used to love. And that is, guys, the wonderful world, maybe, of World Wrestling Entertainment, guys. And a very, I think, amazing story from Monday Night Raw this past week or during this week. But of course, guys, the one and only John Cena marked his 20th year anniversary with WWE this past Monday night at a sold-out show over on USA Network. And Brandon, I'm sure you guys talked about this maybe on your wrestling show on Tuesday. Yep. But Brandon, I think you saw my post on Facebook, and I'll actually pull it up for you guys and read it off to you here. This was back on Monday night, I think after Raw went off the air on USA. And I wrote this and shared a picture of John, though, when he was in San Diego. So I wrote this: forgive me, but I have not watched WWE or pro wrestling in quite a while, but wanted to congratulate John Cena on his outstanding 20-year career for both in the ring and out of the ring. I remember my first ever pro wrestling show I went to in person at, here in San Diego. It was April of 2005 here at the Sports Arena. The first SmackDown episode on UPN that aired after John won the championship from JBL at WrestleMania 21. And of course, Brandon, you remember best though in the early and mid 2000s when John came out though wearing all the Mitchell and Ness era throwback gear of a team that he was representing for the market at least. So John comes out that night wearing a Padres 1978 era Dave Winfield jersey and the hat backwards, and was cutting a promo that night. Then he came back out though at the end of the match though. It was, I think they had a #1 contenders tournament going on to see who would face John later on in the storyline for the title. And it was Rey Mysterio, ironically enough, San Diego's own Rey Mysterio facing JBL. And God bless his soul, the late great Eddie Guerrero interfered and got Rey disqualified in the match, though. And then the cabinet came out, though. Orlando Jordan and the Bash Brothers all came out. And John came out and cleared house that night. And yes, Brandon, I had the rap album. I still have it on my computer. I have the CD somewhere in my collection. But I always have admired and respected John, not just because of what he was in the ring. I know that, again, all the stuff is scripted, though, but also seeing the outpouring of love, though, from Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, guys he had very, I think, remarkable, and also, I think legendary, sagas and, and rivalries with, though, and even Adam Copeland, who was better known as Edge, though. And I just think more, but I think, though, mainly J.A. and Brandon, I think more about John Cena, that is, though, mainly, though, for his charitable work with Make-A-Wish. I think he was one of the top Make-A-Wish granters in their entire career, or in their entire foundation history, where he grants so many wishes for all these at-risk kids or kids who are going through debilitating health issues and stuff. And, John, it's one thing mainly, Alcorn, that we see athletes, like baseball players, basketball players, anybody out there get through 20 years. Actually, John, I'll spare you for a second here, but Brandon, I'm sure you guys again talked about this on Tuesday Night Mania on Coast to Coast. Brandon, maybe give us your overall, I guess, not thoughts, but mainly, give us like your memories of John Cena, maybe John Cena, the wrestler, but also John Cena, the person away from the ring, though, again, who I believe is still the #1 Make-A-Wish Foundation wish granter in their entire history.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys watch clips, you saw him come out. I think one of his first matches, Angle had an open match, and John Cena comes out and answers the call, and pretty much, the Thuganomics character, the young blood, wanted to bring the attitude, and so that's where it starts off. And then he went and did his Thuganomics character, and then started transitioning into being a face of the company with all like you said, Colin, with the Make-A-Wish Foundation stuff. Great entertainer. He's now gone into some movies which have been pretty entertaining. But I think more or less, I think he's going to be more recognizable down the road as the guy that did what he could for his fans with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and whatever else. So great hats off to him. 20 years in the business. I think it was just a few weeks ago or a month ago that we saw a video where he went out to a kid's house because he came over across the sea, and his family's sole purpose was to have him meet John Cena. So yeah, he takes time out. You know, I don't know if it's just the way he is or if that's just, you know, trying to stay in the spotlight or not. I don't know. But I remember, too, that there was another video that came out where a kid actually was thanking him for being supportive of him and his mom's cancer, that wrote him a letter. And you could see that he was tearing up inside, and he might even shedded some tears during that interview. But you know, great hats off to John Cena. Definitely one of the greats in wrestling. Definitely great with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I hope he keeps doing it as much as he can. I mean, I know his, you know, lifestyle's probably changed a little bit more acting, but hopefully he can definitely keep that going.
You know, again, John, like I was saying, though, my man, we don't see a lot of athletes have that long of a career, though. Again, 20 years, though, and especially, though, J.A., in an industry like the WWE or pro wrestling, where it's a constant weekly grind. And, you know, I remember best Jeff Hardy, one of my favorite all-time wrestlers, once said in a documentary about him and his brother Matt that there was just so many times, though, where he would leave the company because he just could not keep up with the travel, the appearances, the shows, you know, how beat up, banged up, chewed up, and spit out your body becomes after all those, you know, steel cage matches, Hell in a Cell matches, you know, Falls Count Anywhere, ladder matches, you name it. And for John Cena, though, J.A., to be able to sustain his career, though, for 20 years, yeah, he's probably ventured off to some new things, though. But he celebrates, though, man, 20 years, though. And again, so many old adversaries and, you know, scripted rivals. Again, Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, you know, Edge, you know, so many other big, you know, Kurt Angle, the guy he wrestled in his first ever match in 2002, you know, all obviously, you know, all that was scripted, you know, but I'm sure, though, and I think Brandon would probably agree, though, these guys are close, though, when they're not competing and when they're not, you know, in the ring or on television. You know, I'm sure that they're hanging out, though, at bars or at restaurants when the shows are over. And they travel together. They travel the road and stuff. And that's all I heard, though, when Eddie Guerrero himself was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006, though, from Chavo Guerrero and the late great Chris Benoit and Rey Mysterio, was about how they would just travel the road across, you know, big cities to small towns and things like that. And for John Cena, though, J.A., to be able to do that for 20 years again with some, you know, off time here and there and stuff is really just I think a really cool story. And again, I think it's just more so about his charitable work, though, too. Again, the appearances he's done. But again, and Tyler actually says, though, here, guys, that John Cena still is number one, over 650 wishes granted for Make-A-Wish patients. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. But John, again, you and I probably are not on the wrestling bandwagon anymore. I used to be. I still, you know, play my, you know, 2009 era video game on my PSP every so often. But John, maybe your overall thoughts mainly on seeing someone like John Cena, you know, of his caliber, lasting 20 years, though, in an industry like professional wrestling, where it's such a grind day in and day out.
I mean, what a phenomenal career. I just remember watching WWE this year with Brandon, all those at Coast to Coast. I was like, I was just looking at that. Really, this is like, it hurt my nuts. It hurt everything. Like, it looked so painful. And it's like, oh my goodness, no way that he did that. But I just think it shows that a lot of times there's certain people, maybe in the WWE or sports in general, like when they get all this fame and success and TV shows like he has with his little TV show he did with James Gunn, Peacemaker, it's that they lose sight of, I guess, what really matters. And he didn't lose sight of that. What really matters is, and it's the people and it's the kids. And I think that that's definitely something that's really special. But hats off to a great career. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, again, folks, a phenomenal career again for John Cena, who celebrated 20 years inside of the WWE on Monday Night Raw this past Monday night. Crowded a worldwide television audience on USA. We sadly, guys, don't have our final thoughts transition right now in our folder, but we will, in fact, go to final thoughts right now. With that in mind, Brandon, we'll go to you first, my man. What do you got for final thoughts this evening, my good man?
No, thanks for letting me on. Enjoyed talking sports, wrestling, you know, whatever comes to mind. you catch myself on C2C, on the Four Bros radio show, Morning Tailgate when we bring that back, on deck on Tuesdays along with Tuesday Night Mania and Sports Minute. So please keep checking the Coast to Coast out along with Ison over here with these guys, Callan and John.
Yeah, again, Brandon, most definitely we thank you again for coming on. Mr. Alcorn, your final thoughts are what tonight, my man?
Cleveland, don't you freaking do it. But no, it was a good show. Happy to be here talking sports. I will be checking my Twitter very vigorously these next couple of days and more because honestly, it's going to drive me nuts. I'm going to be checking Twitter all the time. I'm going to be checking with people, something. Because if you don't get this done, I will sit there with y'all, with the GM and the head coach, and we're going to get this done. It's not simple. We're not going to let this die like Anakin did himself in episode 6. But it was a good show. Happy to be here. And, yeah, we got some cool stuff coming to Ison soon.
Oh yeah, most definitely, folks. Again, we're just working our way through hurdles. Again, I'm kind of, myself, and I are kind of again getting back in a nice little routine again of getting some games here again before August hits once more with the actual college announcing seasons, plus of course the pro ones as well. Folks, my final thoughts, and I hate to be the guy who brings the mood down here, but I'd be very remiss though if I did not announce today. That sadly our public address announcing community lost one of our cornerstone members earlier on Thursday, late on Wednesday, actually into Thursday morning. But Atlanta Braves public address voice Casey Motter sadly and very unexpectedly and suddenly passed away late on Wednesday night into Thursday morning at the age of 53. The Braves put out a press release today, and I actually caught wind of it around 11:30 local time here in our public address announcing group. And I actually told a lot of the Ison and a lot of the our fellow colleagues with our podcast platforms that this is now the third announcing colleague I have sadly seen lost in the past 2 years, notably Seth Smith, who was one of my right-hand men at USD and Point Loma Nazarene on the play-by-play side with basketball and soccer and volleyball. And also the man himself, Don Marico, who passed away, the voice of Duquesne Athletics and the former Pittsburgh Power of the Arena Football League. And I know that my man, Chris Davis, my fellow colleague, had kept Dom's memory alive during the indoor football season for a bit, where he would say the line of "you can't do that" when the opposing team would take a penalty in Dom's memory. And Casey, again, folks, was a guy that I did not know personally in person, but having been around so many fellow announcers, play-by-play voices, PA announcers, and we have our own group on Facebook, and we go there and share advice and share recommendations. We share the office view of, we share videos and photos of us on the job site. And Casey was such a guy who really wanted to see all of us succeed, though, whether we were in the major leagues or in the minors or at a local college, though. And more so, I think I feel extremely sad, though, for the fact that Casey was part of a upstart mobile app that little leagues have used around the country to have voices like Casey and Michael Araujo of the Angels and the LA Galaxy and Andrew Moshbrooks, who was with the Cubs, though, but having those major league guys record intros for these little league teams and travel ball teams and something that I didn't have when I played, for heaven's sakes. It would have been amazing to have, though. But Casey was one of the first guys who did it. He was a huge supporter of ballpark DJing and a huge supporter of all of us, though, who were in the field, though. Always would give us advice, would always pass along tips, advice, constructive criticism, or a pat on the back or a birthday wish when it would roll around, though. And I'm just extremely sad. And again, keeping Casey's family and the Braves organization in my thoughts and prayers as the night rolls on. But again, sadly, Casey Motter, way too soon at the age of 53, long time or pretty long voice of the Atlanta Braves, again, passing away from unknown causes at the age of 53 earlier on late Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And again, sending all of the best to the Braves and to Casey's wife, Debbie, and the entire Motter family on this Thursday. And actually, as a matter of fact, Todd Lights, the public address voice of the LA Dodgers, actually put out on Twitter an hour or so ago after the Dodgers beat my hometown Padres, sending deepest condolences to the family of Braves PA announcer Casey Motter, who passed away in his sleep early Thursday. 53 years old, gone too soon. So again, just great seeing the outpouring of love and support for Case and for the announcing community. With that, though, folks, we'll wrap things up for the night here on this Thursday into Friday morning. Again, folks, for Big B, Brandon Herrera, and John Alcorn, yours truly, Cal McClure, bidding you a pleasant rest of your night and a great night and good night from across Minnesota, Texas, and out here on the left coast. We'll see you folks next time back here on all things sports and entertainment here, the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network, folks. Till next time, good night and bye-bye.